What is up, weirdos? You're listening to the Manic Weirdo. I'm Abigail, your host, and this is the podcast where we talk about all the different kinds of relationships that we have in our lives. And today we have a very special guest, a very good friend of mine, Ariel from Malice, the podcast, it's true crime podcast. Go ahead, Ariel, say hi.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here, Abigail. It was like the very first time that we met and actually talked like face to face. We just sort of were like, are we the same person? Like, is
And
this
we
real?
are.
Yeah, we kind of are in some
It's so
ways.
great. And
So,
you know how I know that is because you're wearing the exact same shirt that I have.
are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Of course.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, is that is the shirt? Okay. We are the same person.
I love it. I love it so much.
It's so great. It's always fun when you find somebody and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, totally kindred spirits. I don't usually use that term. Maybe twin flames.
I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. Yeah.
Flames. Let's
Twin
do that.
flames.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about our relationship with true crime because this is a collaboration and she does a true crime podcast. I love true crime. I've always loved true crime. Um, so we're just going to talk about and we talk about relationships and it is a relationship. It's a different kind of relationship that we have and it's one of those like weird ones because I like true crime for some stupid reason. I think that like the more that I know about it, the less likely it is to happen to me, which is completely untrue and very irrational, but it's the truth. So that's one of the reasons. So like go into it. What's your relationship with true crime like? Like what draws you to it? Why did you choose it? What is it about it that makes you cough with joy?
Sorry, I am getting over a cold. So my relationship with true crime started when I was 7, and I picked up this book called Number the Stars by Lois Lowry, and
Yes.
right?
So
So
good.
I read that and I just kept thinking, what in the world is going on that this little girl has to be smuggled out of the country? That's crazy.
Right.
And so that got me reading pretty much anything I could get my hands on that had to do with the Holocaust. So that was kind of my first foray into why do people do really horrible things. And then in 4th grade, and this is the key moment.
Okay.
So I went to San Antonio with my parents. We were very poor growing up, and so trips were not very frequent. This was something that my dad had to go to for business, and so he just said, like, "Why don't we all go?" Great. So we went, we saw the Alamo, we went and we walked on the Riverwalk. Well, at the very end of the Riverwalk, and I don't know if it's the same today, but there was this giant bookstore. And my mom, um, e she she would so my mom could never deny us kids books. That was just like the one thing that if we wanted a book, she'd say yes, you
It's
know. We
awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. We didn't have a whole lot to work with, right? And
Right.
so but if we wanted a book, she'd get us a book. And so, since it was a vacation, she said, "Okay, each of you can pick out 2 books." Right? So, of course, we just go tearing into this place. And I stumbled across this series of books called You Be the Judge, You Be the Jury. And the first one I picked up was the trial of Alger Hiss. And Alger Hiss was convicted of treason. He was a double agent for Russia during the Cold War.
Do I have a book on him? I think I might have a book on
Do
him.
you
I
really?
probably do
Oh my
somewhere in
God.
here.
Of course you would. Of
Yeah.
course you would.
Yeah.
So, and that one, I was like, oh, cool. Like, that'll be interesting. But the second one I picked up, knowing nothing, okay, was the trial of Lizzie Borden. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I picked up this book and I was like, oh, that'll be good. And I remember getting into the car and pulling out my books. And you know how there's a picture sometimes right before like the first chapter? They just put a
Yeah.
picture. Yeah, it was Andrew Borden on the couch.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a children's book, mind you.
Well, you
And
know,
I looked at it and I just went, oh my God, this is terrible.
right?
Tell me
Oh,
everything. I need to know everything now.
yes. Yes. This is horrible. Keep going.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
So that's kind of how I made my foray into an interest in true crime. From that point forward, I was just like, look, fourth grade, 9 years old, axe murder. I mean, where
Why
does it go from
not?
there? You
What
know?
happens? Oh my God. Yes. 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 And then, of course, obviously, all the forensic files and inside
Oh, girl.
editions, all
Yes.
the things,
Uh huh.
2020, just all of it.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I remember, okay, so this is going to date my soul a little bit, I think. So I don't remember how old I was, but I grew up watching reruns of Sonny and Cher and loved it. And then it got to the part where Sonny, spoilers, dies. And I needed to know, like, I was so attached to these people that I like needed to know everything there was to know about like Sonny and Cher and like what happened. And then from there, it was just kind of, I guess we're on the train. We're just going to go and just do it. The reason though that I like your podcast is because it is a little bit different. It has this extra like twist to it that I thought was very creative and very fun. And it's much more interesting, at least from my like point of view. I just find it way more fascinating. And you dissect the actual like murderers themselves. And then we see kind of like what goes into making a person. Is it nature or is it nurture? Is it both? Like all of these different elements.
Sure.
um and I love that. I was on an episode Butterfly of her podcast. Go check it out. It was so much fun. We had a blast. And we did, I forget what her name was that we did.
Francine Hughes.
Yeah, Francine Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
And we did her case. Again, she was the murderer, but it was a very like, it was a much different case than I think what people would, because it was, we came at it from her perspective. And as it turns out, I'm completely on her side. So,
Look,
I
you know,
mean,
what, look, I'm not pro murder. However,
again,
I'd totally get a margarita with her for happy hour. I mean, I'm just saying, just
yeah,
putting it out there.
exactly. Right. I don't know what that says about me or us as people, but yes, I would get drinks with her. I would go dancing with her. She would be like a
100%.
movie buddy for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
But as it turns out, like that you've done several like that where I've just been like, nah, I kind of think I'm on their side. Like, I get it. I get it. But that's the point. So, like, how did you get into that side of it? Like, what drew you to, like, because that's the more interesting piece for me. I don't know if I assume it's true for you. So, like, how did you, you know,
Sure. It's kind of funny. I started out in acting when I was about 6 years
Mhm.
old, and all theater stuff. I mean, I did a little bit of film stuff, but it's nothing anybody would have ever heard of, or whatever. It's not a blip on anybody's radar. But mostly theater stuff, and kind of trying to figure out what was the backstory behind characters. Because a lot of times when people portray characters in acting, and I mean, I say a lot of time, I don't mean people who are paid the big bucks in Hollywood. I'm talking about people who just in general are
Yeah.
actors. They look at a character and they go, okay, I need to be this character and I'm going to be this character. And they act. However, it's kind of two-dimensional, unless you really understand where the character is coming from, what their backstory is, all of that. And that's not something they give you in the script all the time. That's something you kind of have to ferret out for yourself. And so that kind of got me started on that. And then, fresh out of high school, I worked as a Title I aide. And for anybody who's not familiar with that, in public school. Title One is basically dealing with children who are at risk or who struggle in reading, math, and need extra enrichment. And so I worked with these kids, and I mean, it was like the light of my life. I cannot tell you anything that happened during the 2 years that I was there, except for things that have to do with these kids. Like, I really and truly, I'm just like, I don't know. I lived at home, I think. I don't, wait, what? Maybe? Who knows? Anyway, not important. The important part is that I fucking loved these kids, and I still remember them. I still remember their names. I still remember like the things that they told me, and so that became really critical to me. And I had a child that I worked with, and I'm not going to give her actual name. I'm going to call her, let's call her Ava.
Okay.
And Ava was born with what's referred to as water on the brain, right?
Right. Right.
And she just understood. There was something about her. She just understood that she took longer
Mm-hmm.
to get to the same place as her classmates. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember one day, I was working with her, and she got through an entire book that we were working on, and it was below grade level, but it doesn't matter. She got through this entire book and she didn't have a single hiccup. And this child was so excited. And I was so excited.
Oh
And,
my gosh.
and she just told me, she hugged me, and then she just said, you know, I know it takes me longer to learn things than others, but it's really important to me. And I'm so proud of myself. And I just thought, oh my God, and that stuck with me. And so that sort of thing really humanized people for me, right?
Yeah.
And I have a hard time looking at adults and not thinking about them in terms of what they were like as kids,
Yeah.
and yeah, and so that's a really big thing for me, when I look at these killers, or rapists or kidnappers or what have you. I mean, these violent individuals, and I just go, at some point in time, this was
Yeah.
a toddler, or this is a 5-year-old. This is, I mean, even if they did disturbing things, a 5-year-old who's setting fires, that's a concern, but at the same time, you just go, there's a need there that's not being
Mm.
addressed. Let's address that need, and maybe that fixation will go away. We don't know 100%, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just look at them as if they're kids, and that's such a huge thing to me. So, when I decided to really focus on, what makes violent offenders, I had to really look into it in terms of, I don't want to go into an episode saying, so Charles Manson was XYZ,
Uh,
because everybody's going to go, oh God, I don't want to listen to this. Or they're going to go, well, I know everything he did. Right.
right.
So instead, I don't say the offenders' names until the end of the episodes,
Right.
typically. And I do so because I want people to go on that journey with them,
Yeah.
and to kind of feel it, and kind of go, oh, oh, that's awful. Oh, that's terrible. And look, not all of them have terrible backgrounds. That's one of the interesting things too. And
Right.
we're going to have a few this season 5, that do not have any indicators in their childhood that would lead to them being violent offenders. So it's going to be a very different kind of analysis. So,
But see, that'll be interesting
oh, definitely,
because it
definitely.
makes you search for those similarities. What are the things? What are the like outlier things, you know, about these people? I mean, you'd have to look it up. I forget. Because I've always gravitated toward it too, because I want to know, like, first of all, I have a theory that like the entire, yeah, I mean, okay, so they say that like the earth is only X number of years old, right? And then humans have only been on the earth for like 12,000 years or whatever. Um, so I kind of have this theory that like that pretty much puts the human race, like as a species, we're really probably, our collective mind is only about maybe 5 or 6 years old, which means that we don't have as a species we only have the skills that like a 5 or 6 year old would have to communicate with not only just each other, but with the rest of like the living entities that, the planet that we live on, kind of a thing.
I love that analogy.
And so I can't help but like think about most things in the way that a child's mind would try and like explain it. Einstein has an amazing quote and he says, if you can't explain it to a 6 year old, then you don't understand it.
100% I love that quote.
I love it.
Of
I
course.
love it.
And it's true.
It
It's
is.
absolutely true.
It is. It's true. If you can't explain it to a 6 year old in a way that they will understand it, then you don't understand it yourself. And I tried to take that a step further with my theory, because if you can't explain it to a 6 year old, that means that you must first understand how a 6 year old's mind works. And then you have to reverse engineer how you explain things so that their mind can understand what you're trying to say. But if we can't even, and it doesn't seem like we as a species can really communicate with each other that effectively, we're just not very good at it. And that's why I think that it's because we are collectively as a species, we're only at 5 or 6 years old. Our brains we haven't gotten past that part. And so far, it hasn't exactly been like the most peaceful experience as far as the species is concerned.
Right.
Which means there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. And I think that part of the reason I was drawn to your podcast was because your podcast is sort of an insert into that, where you're going, no, these are people too. Like, they matter too. They are human beings, whether they're alive or dead, and they have a story to tell. And it doesn't make their story any less valid because it's more violent. In fact, I would argue that if anything, it's one of the voices that we need to hear, because those are the people that need the most help.
Right.
And there's and if we can't help those people, then what are we doing? Because we're only as strong as our weakest link, and those are people that are part of that weakest link group that need to be listened to. We need to listen to them. We need to understand what they're going through, how their thought process works. And that's one of the great things I love about your podcast too, is that you can follow the thought process. Or there's been several where I've been like, oh no, I get it. Like, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Okay, I'm with you. I could see how this leads to this and this leads to this. I get it. I don't know if anybody else could feel that way. I feel like you do, but
Of course. No,
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like, in a lot of the cases that I cover, it is more of a warning really than it is, I mean, I have a lot of esteem and a lot of admiration for people who cover unsolved cases, unadjudicated cases, things like that. Um, but mine, it's not that, I try to keep victims central to the narrative where I'm able, but I really am focusing on the offenders and why they do what they do. And the reason being is because if we're ever going to be able to, rehabilitate or intervene, or God help us, prevent these violent things, we have to understand them as people. And they're making very human choices. We think of these things and we go, oh no, that he's evil, or he's a monster, or he's whatever. And it takes on this sort of paranormal or spiritual or otherworldly sort of context. And the fact is it's no, they're not. They're not monsters.
Yeah.
The only creatures who do this are human beings. We're the only
Right.
ones.
Yeah.
So they're very intrinsically human. And so understanding what makes them do the things that they do is essential. When you look at, my background, when I was in grad school, I studied identity development and maintenance and deviant behavior and social control. And what that basically caused me to focus on was the biggest outliers, like the people who are the most
Us.
extremely well, yeah, like the the people who are so extremely outside of the norm, if you do what's best practice for them, it's going to work for the people who are in the norm. It's going
Yeah.
to. So,
Well,
to
and see,
me, it's a logical thing.
I've never understood why people don't understand that. Because if you do the hard part first, the rest of it's easy.
Yes. 100 fucking percent. Yes.
I mean, it just makes sense to me. Like, because you're going to have to do the hard part whether you want to or not. So I personally would rather get the hard part done first. That
Oh,
way, the rest
same.
of it's like cheesecake, and I can just do
Yeah,
whatever.
absolutely. Yes. I mean, and that's the thing to me too, is it's just like I feel like people look at the hard part and they go, yeah, but there just aren't that many of them. So we're just not going to deal with it. We'll deal with it when it becomes a problem. And in so doing and catering to the people who are in that, norm in terms of aggregates, there's no such thing as fucking normal when it comes to like people's day-to-day lives and shit. All I'm talking about is an aggregate. Like most people do
Yeah,
this, most
the
people don't do this.
average. Yeah.
Yes, averages.
Most
Exactly.
people go to college. Most people, that
Yeah,
kind of
exactly,
stuff.
exactly.
That's what we're
Most people
talking.
brush their teeth twice a day. Like, okay,
Right.
right? So, I mean, by that token, if you brush your teeth 4 times a day, that means you're abnormal. Like, is that a bad thing?
Exactly.
Not really. I mean,
Oh,
it doesn't really matter. Like, good for you though. Good dental hygiene.
good God. I don't know how
Congratulations.
you
That's
do
great.
that. I can barely manage the two. I don't know how you do four. Jeez.
Right? Like, do you do it after like a mid-morning snack or something? I don't
Also, that's
know.
a
Like
lot
that.
of food. What are you eating? I hope you're eating
Yeah.
healthy. Please tell
Yeah.
me you're like eating well and you're not just like
Right.
brushing your teeth because you've had like a Snickers at 10 a.m. and then you had to like, a whole bunch of fast food at noon. And then I just can't please take care of yourself, people.
Please
Okay.
do. Please do. If you take anything out of this episode, please take care of yourself and eat well.
Yeah. And brush your teeth. Maybe not 4 times. That
Maybe
might be
not
a
4
little bit
times a day. It's
much.
fine.
Okay.
It's
It's
fine. Two's
fine.
fine. Two's
Yeah.
fine.
Two's fine.
We're all good with it. Yeah.
We firmly believe on this podcast, brushing your teeth twice a day is at least fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Firmly
Don't
believe. We'll
worry.
make a controversial statement. You can cancel us for it too if you want.
Cancel me. Come at me, bro. Whatever. Anyway.
That debate's settled. What's next? World peace?
So yeah, but like when we look at things like that, in terms of normality and whatnot, like
Well, but not even that works because there is no definition of normal. It's like you said, because there is no true definition of normal, not even that works. Because I mean, you've seen what just take education, for example, No Child Left Behind.
oh my God, yes.
Supposedly, it's supposed to help get as many people through the school system as possible up and graduated. Well, that's worked out so well.
Yeah, no. I'm oh God. Like from the moment that bill was brought up, I remember and I just thought, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. But again, I was working with kids in Title One. I was working with at-risk kids.
Right.
And it was just like, do you really and truly think that this is going to happen with these children? And that's not to say that I didn't believe in them or felt like they weren't capable of doing good things. But if my kids with me as passionate and dedicated as I was to working with them, if my kids were still iffy on the passing, what about the kids who don't have that? What about the kids who are starving? What about the kids who only get free and reduced lunch and nothing else at home? What about the kids who are being abused? What about the kids who are, I mean, any
What if,
number
what if,
of
what if, what
things.
if, what if? I mean, it's a
Exactly.
long list and you
I
just
mean,
leave out so many people. And see, but that's
yes,
the thing about if you just do it our way, then you don't leave those people out because those people are the ones getting taken care of first.
exactly.
And then you don't have to worry about anybody else.
Right? Because guess what? If the kids on the margins understand, so will the kids who aren't. That's
So weird. It's such a strange concept. Yeah. I mean, but typical me. If you just do it my way, it'll be fine. Just listen to me. What do I know? Nobody cares what we think.
oh
Nobody
my
asked
God.
us.
Okay. I have to tell you this because of exactly how you just said that. I have said for years, I'll give my opinion about something and I'll go. Then again, I mean, nobody asked me, so
No, I say that all the
who cares
time.
what Ariel says?
Yeah, oh my God. More proof.
We
Because
are.
I say
We
that
are the same person.
all the time. I'm like, nobody asked us. Nobody cares what we think.
I mean, if they asked us, things would
This
be a
is
lot better.
well, but my other thing is, anytime somebody's like, it can't be done, or like, you shouldn't do it that way, or that's a bad idea, or like, there's no money. That's my favorite. There's no money. My response is, oh, no, no, no. There's money. I can find it. You're just not going to like where I'm going to find it.
I love it.
You're just not going to like my solutions.
Right.
It's fine. But also, nobody said you had to. Okay. I don't like your way. Your way's dumb. So we're going to just do it my way. It's better.
Yes. And let's just put it out there while we're on the topic that just because I don't have an answer for a question. God damn it. I'm sorry.
Doesn't mean you don't know or don't care.
Just because I don't have an answer to a question doesn't mean that I can't tell that your answer is fucking stupid.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Because most of the time I know where you're going to take it, and it's just dumb.
Well, how would you solve it? You know what? I really don't know. But the way that you suggested, that's not going to work.
There's no
terrible.
way. It's a terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's a terrible plan. And see, but that's the other thing. People are like, there are no bad ideas. No. There are bad ideas. There are very bad ideas. What are you talking about? There's no such thing as a bad idea. Get out of here. Fuck right off. No. No.
I'm abso-fucking-tively. I am on the same page. I can't. Like, there's no such thing as bad ideas. Whew. I almost forgot to breathe. Really?
Right? Like, what are you talking about? No, but I like your approach to it, and it's super interesting. Because it doesn't just go, but then if you start solving all those problems for like the outliers, then all of a sudden you have to do things like take mental health seriously. And
shit. Yeah, you're right.
you have to like start taking mental health seriously, and you have to go, oh shoot, we should probably not make like really bad food for you really cheap. We should let everybody have access to like good, healthy, nutritious food. Also, universal child care. You have to start like acknowledging these things.
Yeah.
And that's like a big problem.
It is a big problem. Yeah. A lot
and
of
also like treating teachers better and like paying them more.
Right.
Right. And like actually helping students, not like giving them the STAR test now or whatever.
Yeah, the STAR.
It was like the TAKS or the TOS when I was in school.
Oh yeah. I took the TOS test. I think I was like the last group of students who actually took the TOS test. And then it was like when somebody later was like, yeah, we're taking TAKS. And I was like, TOS?
It's changed. TAKS. Yeah, it's changed so many times. It's changed.
Standardized testing. Oy, that's a different podcast. That's a different
podcast, which we can do. It's fine.
Definitely. Let's revisit. We'll come back.
Absolutely. We'll circle back. No, but it just like, but those are the kinds of things that people have to start acknowledging. And like, I mean, healthcare, especially mental health, because guess what? Well, okay, I'm pretty firmly against the death penalty. I'm not for it for a myriad of reasons, not just because I don't believe that like the state should be allowed to murder its citizens, but like other reasons as well. It's really expensive for one.
It is.
But that means that you then have to start addressing like the prison system and how we deal with offenders. And we have to start realizing that when you send someone to jail for something like a violent crime, it's probably not going to get like better in that environment. And we're not helping anybody by putting them in like society's timeout.
Right. And, I think about as just an illustration, I think about the movie Blow with Johnny Depp. and Penelope Cruz. I love that movie. I think it's fantastic.
Great.
It's about George Young, and basically in talking about going away for 2 years for marijuana possession and distribution. And he said that he went in with like a bachelor's degree in marijuana and he graduated with a PhD in cocaine and drug
Yeah.
smuggling, you know, and you see that a lot. There are people who go in even for nonviolent offenses who come out who are then kind of sculpted into violent offenders because of the nature of our prison system.
Well, I mean, Charles Manson, just to
Oh my
circle
God.
back, I mean, he was
Right?
in and out for years when he was a kid. Like he
Right.
was, I mean, and it wasn't, I don't remember them being for anything in particularly violent. I thought it was like robbery,
It was, yeah,
like
petty theft mostly.
like
Mhm.
carjacking,
Right.
you know.
You know, when he was 14 years old, he was about to be let go. He was waiting on his hearing. He was right outside the courtroom. 14 years old, he was going to be let out on good behavior. And he saw an inmate who was younger than him and smaller than him, which is a feat. He was a very small man.
Mm.
Anyway, point being, he couldn't help himself. He ended up raping this child right outside the courtroom door.
Mhm.
And so he ended up right back
Yeah.
in place. Now, he didn't grow up being sexually abused. He was neglected,
Right.
deeply neglected by
Hmm.
his mother. And, you know, his grandmother was not much help. And I mean, you know, people talk about like, oh, yeah, she sold him for a pitcher of beer. Yes, sort of. She didn't just conduct like an exchange. She joked with this waitress who said, "Oh, I'd love to have him. Can I just take him from you?" And she said, "Yeah, bring me another pitcher of beer." And they sort of laughed it off.
Yeah.
And so she's brought another pitcher of beer. She finishes that and then she just leaves. And she left the child in his carrier.
Mhm.
And it took his uncle, Lonnie, 4 days to track down this waitress to find this child. You know, I mean, the thing is that we have these ideas about these violent offenders and we go in thinking we know the whole story and we just don't,
Well,
you
and
know?
I mean, just that story alone goes to, child development. I
Absolutely.
mean, there's no way to know now what that did to him as a child and to his brain development. But I mean, if the research shows anything, it's that your brain is a sponge pretty much until you're about like 18, like 16, 17, 18.
Right.
And you just absorb. And those first 5 years of your life are like the spongiest of the sponge. They are
Absolutely.
absorbing everything.
In the first 1,000 days or 3 years of your life, right around to that point, 85% of core brain development occurs.
Yeah.
By the time you're 5, that's 95%.
Yeah.
So in those first 5 years of life, your brain is basically becoming hardwired.
Yeah.
And yes, that 5% can make a huge difference. Don't get me wrong. You know, if you get to be 10 years old and you go through, you know, a tsunami that devastates your entire town, like,
Right.
you know, that is a trauma and that's something that's going to affect the way that your brain works. But again, 95% by the age of 5. We look at somebody like Charles Manson or any other number of children who
Yeah.
go through, you know, let's just focus for a second on neglect, just neglect,
Yeah.
right? People look at that as if it's like a lesser than type of situation.
Can we
And
stop doing that? Can we stop comparing like, one horrible thing to the other? Like
thank
my
you.
horrible thing is worse than your horrible thing. So
Yeah,
I'm can we
no
stop doing that?
functionality. There's no functionality to the suffering Olympics. Like we really don't need to play that game. Like
Yeah. We just need to stop doing this. Like we've all had shitty things happen to us. Okay.
yes.
So we can just
And they're all
agree that it's
legitimate.
all
Yeah.
shitty.
It all sucks. Let's just move on from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, you look at something like that, but neglect in a lot of ways, even more than physical abuse or even sexual abuse in some cases, neglect can be on the mind the hardest thing that a child can go through. First of all, yes, you're dealing with things like lack of nutrition, lack of bathing, lack of clean clothes, etc., all those basic needs. But beyond that, neglect is when a caregiver pays you no attention. It's not saying, I don't care about you. It's not saying, I don't have time for you. It's saying, you don't exist.
Yeah. It's literally, it's because, okay, children, despite what you may or may not think, cannot be taken back to the store. Okay.
Nope.
You
I
can't
tried.
do that.
No kidding.
Yeah, you can't. And guess what? No one cares if you have the receipt. Okay. God doesn't care. You signed up for this. This is what you get. There's no takebacks. Okay.
Right.
So, some people, when they have a child, for whatever reason, they chose to have the child, or maybe they were in a circumstance where they couldn't necessarily choose that for themselves. It just sort of was thrust upon them. When that situation occurs, those people also cannot give their kids back. And so they don't know what to do. And a lot of the times, and another thing that it addresses too is, this goes back to the mental health. And a lot of women, it's like 90% of women suffer from postpartum depression, and that can manifest itself in a number of ways. And
Yes.
one of those ways it can manifest itself is neglect. It's not necessarily at that point anyone's fault. It's just a circumstance that has happened. And now, but that's where you need help. You need help. You need another
Right.
person. You need, whether that be a husband, a wife, a sister, a friend, a grandparent, it doesn't matter. Help. But if you don't
Right.
have help, then you're kind of just stuck in a situation where you are now depressed out of your mind and have literally no energy to take care
Absolutely.
of a child. And that can be a form, that is a form of neglect.
Absolutely. And one of the cases that I covered in my very first season doing Malice was Andrea Yates.
Mm.
And, I have a great deal of compassion and empathy for her. I feel like uh, she did everything that she should have done.
Mm-hmm.
She saw professionals. She was put on medication. The professionals said, hey, you really don't need to have another baby. You really, really don't. This is a really bad idea. This is going to make everything worse. And because of her religious beliefs, and I think by pressure of her husband, that's a big,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer of that. That's, let's go ahead and throw out the allegedly. But I'm a big believer that there was pressure from him, and she got pregnant again. She had her fifth child. And, I watched the entire progression of the point where she was in school and she was, the valedictorian, and she was doing these amazing things. She was such a bright woman and so talented. And then getting into this marriage, and then sort of being like shoved down and down and down and down and down until she was living in a shoebox and having baby after baby after baby. And I truly, truly believe she loved her children. I truly do.
Yeah.
It was such a tragedy, though. She was dealing with postpartum psychosis.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm somebody who actually dealt with postpartum psychosis. It was not nearly as extreme, right?
Right.
But, there was a period of time where I had to be very closely monitored by professionals
Mm-hmm.
because I was a danger to myself more than my daughter. But, when we talk about neglect, that's a way that can happen. I just remember Andrea Yates, talking in interviews about being absolutely catatonic.
Yeah.
She couldn't get up. She couldn't handle, so never mind what she did in terms of, taking her children's lives. I have a hard time saying murdering. I
Yeah.
love those babies, but I have a hard time saying murdering. She took her children's lives. But if you take that away and just look at the behaviors while they were alive, any neglect was not because she lacked the desire to care for her children.
Right. Or she didn't love them.
Right.
It didn't have anything to, it was, you physically cannot get up to do
Right.
anything. And, as someone, I don't have kids, but I do have depression. And I also know it's incredibly common for women to have postpartum depression. Like, if you have postpartum depression and you're listening to this, you are not alone. Okay. You're
Not at
not.
all. Not at all.
It's very, very common, and it needs to be talked about more because it is so common, and you're not the
Yes.
only person that is feeling like this.
And even if you're not full blown depressed or psychotic because of postpartum, 85 to 90% of women, and yes, that is a legitimate statistic,
Yeah.
suffer from at least postpartum dysphoria.
Yeah.
You're
Which
not
is,
going to necessarily be the hallmark photo with, the smiling with your baby and everything's rosy and you look beautiful. And
and you
no,
know what?
most of the time you're going to be like trying to remember if you brushed your teeth. It's going to be, we're
Again,
talking
twice a
about
day,
teeth brushing a
two
lot.
times a day, twice a day.
2 times a day. Yes.
This is morning and night. That's good.
Right.
If you
Right.
can manage it, and maybe get the babies in there too, if you can. If they've got teeth, I don't know. It might, if they don't, then just don't worry about it. It's one less thing.
Yeah. Yeah. One less thing. Mm-hmm.
But no, but it's very, and you have to talk about those things. And Charles Manson, yeah, I mean, but his development, we'll never know what happened with his development. And I mean, poo poo for you if you think, well, there are some people that are just not worth saving. Like, but that's where you go back into that divine realm, which I can't take. That I can't take that. Just stop it. Stop it. We're human beings. Okay. We're humans. We are fallible by nature and definition. Okay. Nobody nobody is divine or appointed to be divine. Like, no, 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 no. We are all imperfect, and it's okay. And I would like to say this too, just kind of right off the bat. There's a stigma in this country, and probably I feel like the world really, of asking for help, and like it's a bad thing. I don't know when it became a bad thing to ask for help and to say, I don't know how to do this. I need help. And it's okay that I don't know what I need. I just know I need help. So if you're listening to this, just ask. Just ask for help. Email manicpixieweird@protonmail.com. You can email Ariel and her podcast. We will
Absolutely.
do what we can to
Mm-hmm.
help you. Because we got it. It takes a village. It really
Yeah,
does.
it really does. And I'll be completely honest with you guys, everybody. When I was in the throes of this, I had a newborn baby and she could not stomach breast milk. She could not stomach the vast majority of formula. So she was colicky for 3 to 4 months. We
Oh,
finally figured out what she needed. It was exhausting. And I also had debris left over from the birth in my uterus, which got
oh,
infected. And so I couldn't keep food down and I was in and out of the hospital during this whole thing. And it finally got to a point where I was like, it doesn't even, pride doesn't even factor in. Like, I can't do this without help. And, my husband at the time was very dedicated to, no, 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 I'm going to take care of it. But he was only sleeping 2 or 3 hours
yeah.
total a day. And it was just not sustainable. And I asked for help without his permission. I was just like, no, I need somebody to come and do something so that both of us can rest. And I'll be honest with you, nobody looked at us at that time as being selfish or unable or whatever. They just were like, yeah, of course I want to help. And looking back, half of those people probably don't even remember what they did at the time. You know what I mean? Because it was just like, yeah, it's not that big an inconvenience. I'll come over and hang out for 2 hours with the baby. Like,
Yeah.
okay. Hey, I'll come over and do a couple loads of laundry. Wow. All right. Great.
Right. That would be
So
helpful. I'll drop off
exactly.
dinner.
Exactly. I mean, it just, people do want to help. It's something that, we get in our minds that we need to be self-sufficient, right? We have this idea that like no one's coming to save you. You got to take care of yourself. You got to do what you do looking out for number one. But the fact is that, if we're going to succeed in moving forward, if as a species we're going to be something better than we are, we got to start taking care of each other.
Yeah, and we have to start helping each other out and helping each other heal. Because
Mhm.
that's the biggest, and it's okay if you don't know what you need. It's also okay to say I don't know what you need. How do you think um would be the best way to help you, kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
It's
Mhm.
okay. It's 100% okay because it's honest. It's a lot more dishonest and a lot more annoying when people just assume they know what you need without ever asking you.
Sure.
So it's always better to say, I don't know what I need, so that other people know that, like, you're not even sure what you need right now. You just need a minute.
Right.
You just
Right.
need a minute. And it's
And
okay to just need a minute.
it is. And, to be totally honest, the reverse side of that coin in terms of frustration is when people say, let me know if you need anything. And you just go, yeah, I'm not going to reach out and say like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, you said that if I needed anything, I'd let you. Yeah, I need an oil change. Can you pick up my car and go do that for me?
Yeah.
No, like that. No, they put that out there. And I do believe that it's sincere. I
Yeah.
do. However, people aren't going to do that. Instead, say, how can I help you?
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Just
Exactly.
phrasing it differently, not saying, let me know if you need anything, but just saying, how can I help you? What can
Right.
I do for you?
Right. What would help you right now?
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And who knows? It might small steps. Small steps to change the world. It's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that kind of sums that up a little bit anyway. Well, we scratched the surface. She'll be back,
Sure.
guys. Don't worry, she'll be back.
I'd better be.
I'll
We've got
kidnap
a
her. It's
we've got a
fine.
full-blown collaboration we're gonna be working on. So
We do. I'm really excited. Go ahead and
I
drop your stuff again.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, Malice, if you're interested in why people do the violent, horrible, horrific, terrifying, monstrous, evil things they do, then, come over to Malice and let's talk about the fact that they're actually human beings. And, there's kind of some fuck shit happens, you know?
Some
But we'll get into
fuckery.
it. Some fuckery. Yeah, it's fucky. Um, so you can find me on social media, Twitter at Malice Podcast, Instagram at Malice Pod. Let's see, my link tree at Malice Pod. Patreon, if you want to support the show at Malice Pod. And there is a big announcement coming out regarding Malice. I'm about to start my 5th season. I'm really excited about it. It is going to be the rangiest season that I've had. I am covering everybody from an an infamous occultist to a guy who, just forgive me, I'm gonna go Stefan from SNL. This case has everything. Okay. It's like it
That
has
was great.
incest, rape, murder. It's just like I'm serious though. It is everything. And that's
That's
the case it's
amazing.
wrapping up my season. So
Ooh.
but yeah, big news, big changes. And yeah. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm really pretty pumped about the whole thing.
Oh my god, I'm so excited. Ah, yay! So check her out. Check me out. Twitter at MP Weirdo Podcast. The Instagrams is the underscore main underscore weirdo 1. The Pinterest is the underscore main underscore weirdo 2 1. All the things. You love all the things. As always, be kind and stay weird, guys. Love y'all.